Where's the? I'm doing it. All right, I'm going into the
around the world. It's just recently been legalized in Germany.
We going to the weed. I'm gonna ignore that. But yeah, we go into the weed one, man. That's a little crazy. A little crazy to say.
And for very good reasons. Compared to legal drugs like
Yo,
alcohol,
is it too
which will
loud or
cause
not?
1 in 20 deaths just this year, cannabis is pretty mild. So,
too loud?
to justify harsh prosecution and punishment, its negative effects have been wildly overstated. Naturally, there was a lot of pushback, and here's something went wrong.
Ah, snap, my
If you followed the
my fault, fellas. But yeah.
discourse over the last few years,
Is it too
you
loud,
might
though?
have got the impression
Let me
that
know.
weed has almost only upsides and few, if any, negative side effects. We ourselves contributed to that narrative. What made this worse is that criminalization made it very hard for scientists to study cannabis, especially its long-term effects. They faced bureaucratic and legal hurdles, and studies often had to rely on small sample sizes. In the last few years, this finally started to change, so it's time to bring new evidence to the discussion. And, well, it's not pretty. While weed is still much less harmful than alcohol, it does have a dark side. It is more addictive than we thought and can have significant negative effects if you use it long term. It seems that... what are you doing? Before you tell us how dumb we are, please watch the video. To be crystal clear, we think prohibition doesn't work and cannabis should be legal, but this also means that we need to treat it as what it is, a drug, with unique upsides and downsides. So let's take an honest look at some of the latest research together. Weed is getting stronger and stronger. Cannabis's magic juice is tetrahydrocannabinol, THC. It docks on your cannabinoid receptors, which affects various brain functions. THC activates some regions and calms down others, creating a fun cocktail of sensations. The more THC, the more intense the high. And people seem to be into higher highs, or at least this is what the market is providing. In the US, Canada, and in Europe, the concentration of THC in legal and illegal cannabis products has more than doubled in the last few decades. While ever more potent strains are bred, products like edibles or concentrates with more than 60% THC have become increasingly common, while the share of products with less than 15% THC has declined.
Bro, edibles, bro, I can't mess with them, bro. I took one. I took two of these gummies, bro. I thought I was just gonna be geeked up, and I was. I thought it was feeling good, but I'm like, yo, I'm getting like too geeked, bro. Bro, I yacked everywhere, all over my living room, kitchen, and in the bathroom. I was fried for like 3 days. Like, real talk. I thought I was never gonna get geeked again, but yeah.
Unfortunately, just about every problem weed creates gets worse at higher THC doses. At the same time, more and more people use weed. In the US, more people consumed cannabis daily than alcohol for the first time in 2022. In Canada, 26% of people 16 and older use it, up from 22% in 2018. It's not possible to say if legalization is the reason for this though, since studies are pretty inconsistent and vary massively between different users. In some, consumption went up, in others it stayed stable, and the trend to use more weed began in the early 90s and sped up in the 2000s, way earlier than legalization. So today, more people consume more weed than ever before in the last century, and it's the strongest it's ever been. What are we seeing as a result of this?
Weed is bad, don't
Let's
get
start
geeked.
with something that used to get you laughed out of the room: addiction. Weed addiction and withdrawal symptoms. A big narrative about weed is that it's not addictive, or at least not that big of a deal. And for most people, this is true. Studies clearly show that the majority handle it well. For 8 out of 10 using weed, it's just a casual high and not problematic at all. About 2 in 10 users develop a cannabis use disorder, or CUD. CUD has 11 different symptoms, from the inability to stop when you've had enough, to using it when you know it will have negative consequences, to tolerance and withdrawal.
Like, that is why I am not getting geeked, bro. Like, that is why. Because say if I was getting geeked throughout this whole time, it would have been cooked. If I say I was getting fried all day just to get past my problem or problems, if I was fried. When I'm not fried, bro, my thoughts would be punching me 50 million times worse. That's why I'm not, I'm not doing that at all. I can't. I gotta go through this pure thought in mind. I'm not hitting this up. When I was talking about the semen retention thing, the same thing for the Zod.
They can all basically be reduced to you're doing it too often, even if it's bad for you, and it's less fun than it could be. There are 3 major risk factors here: the amount of THC, how often you consume, and your age when you start using cannabis. The more THC, the more often, and the younger you are when you start, the higher your risk. If you smoke too much weed too often, it will have negative impacts on your life. So if this is you, toning it down a bit will make a big difference. 1 in 10 users develops a serious addiction. They usually consume daily, and their life is significantly impaired or held back because they spend a lot of their time either using or recovering from cannabis use.
Yeah.
Since their brain is building a tolerance, they need increasingly high doses or stronger weed, often both. Studies found a variety of negative effects. Heavy users can experience bad moods, feel irritable, restless, paranoid, anxious, and even depressive. In a sad twist of irony, for many addicts it feels like they need weed to fight these symptoms. Maybe it did actually help at first, while in reality it makes those symptoms stronger and more persistent. Studies also found that loneliness and frequent cannabis use go hand in hand. If you feel lonely, you're more likely to use weed, and if you use weed, you may experience more loneliness. It's not always easy to say which came first, but they seem to reinforce each other. So on the one hand, cannabis makes loneliness feel much less bad. On the other hand, it can also make you feel more socially awkward than you actually are and withdraw from friends. This can lead to a downward spiral that ends in self-isolation and chronic loneliness. Another thing many people who consume a lot experience is a mental numbness that makes boredom feel okay because it impacts the reward system of your brain. Not great.
So, is what I'm getting from this. There's some people out there, wake up, goon, smoke, wake up, goon, smoke, and just repeat. Bro, no gooning, no more gooning, no more goons, no more good goons, man. I lost my title. Hashtag no more good goons, man. No more good goons. I passed it. No more good goons from me, man. I know. I thought this day would never come. I know. It ain't capping, though. I ain't capping, bro. I ain't capping. The goon father has retired, bro. It has retired, man. I told you, man. 2 years. I'm not even gonna put 2 years is the minimum. I may go longer. But yeah, 2 years is the minimum. Next time I even think about that, actually.
But good enough. You can spend your days killing time binging mildly interesting stuff. being numb rather than having fun. Boredom is a signal to your mind to get creative or learn something new, but this is suppressed. This also makes quitting so much harder because your daily routines suddenly seem boring and unexciting, making it very tempting to go back. If you find yourself using constantly, this can also stunt your development as a person. The numbness dulls bad feelings, making it easy not to deal with them. But in life, you can only get over bad feelings if you actually feel them, and you have to process them to grow.
That's what I said. I said that before we even got here. I said that. I said that. I said that. I said that. Literally, I said that. I said that's why I'm not doing no drugs or alcohol. I want to feel everything. I'm not suppressing nothing throughout this whole time. I literally said that. I know it ain't that big of a deal, but to me it's a big deal. You know, like I'm really a guru now, man. Actually.
Lastly, let's talk about physical withdrawal symptoms. The more you consume, the worse they'll be for you, especially if you use daily. Withdrawal can cause headaches and sweating or chills, decreased appetite, in severe cases even fever, nausea and abdominal pain. You might have trouble falling asleep, and if you do, you might have disturbing and vivid dreams. The withdrawal can put you in a depressive mood where life feels daft and pointless. You can feel restless, angry, anxious, or nervous. You may feel unable to do anything at all. After a few days, these symptoms will begin to subside, and after a few weeks, they'll be gone entirely. The exact time depends on how much and how long you've been consuming cannabis. Now, let's get to the worst part. Weed may damage your brain. This section was not fun to research because there's fierce debate among researchers how bad weed is for your brain and whether it has irreversible long-term consequences or not. There's no consensus yet, and it's hard to say anything definitive. Having said that, THC directly interferes with critical brain chemistry. There is some evidence that it may alter its structure. If it does, this may go away again if you quit after a few years, or not. We don't know yet. The consequences vary a lot between individuals, but especially for heavy users, they have a variety of potentially unfunny downsides. The most common one is that your memory gets significantly worse. Sustained heavy use may reduce your ability to learn, your reasoning, perception, attention span, decision-making, language abilities, and impulse control. Most negative effects seem to go away or at least weaken over time after you quit, but again...
My nigga. What the f... 1 second. Dog going crazy. Why does it do that? 1 second, dude, bro. 1 second. All right. I am back. You know, had Mike Vigan real quick. Let me start making this.
Again, we simply don't know enough and need more research. Where the evidence is much clearer is that consuming a lot of weed is really bad for teenagers on multiple levels. If you start using heavily early, you have many more years to build up potentially negative side effects. Teens who use a lot are much more likely to become addicted to weed. This may just be correlation and weed may not be the underlying cause, but heavy weed users are more likely to perform poorly in school and less likely to finish their education. They are, on average, less satisfied with their life and what they've achieved. This may simply be because if your memory and motivation are stunted, you have fewer interesting experiences and forget the ones you do have. And there is strong evidence that teen users are way more likely to develop mental health issues like psychosis, schizophrenia, depression, or anxiety later in life. Once again, the younger you start, the higher the risk, and it also seems to rise massively with high THC doses, making highly potent cannabis products even more dangerous for teens. Okay, let's wrap this up. We've only focused on the negative sides in this video. That was the whole point. As we said before, for most people, weed in moderation is totally fine and definitely way less harmful than alcohol. You do you, we're not your parents. The upside of moderation is also that when you do it, your experience will be more intense and special. But for teens, weed, especially using it regularly or a lot of it, is a bad idea, with potentially life-changing consequences. We know that criminalization did nothing to make this better. We now have a new chance under legalization. It begins with being open and honest about the state of science and acknowledging that weed is one drug among many others. Certainly not the worst one by a long shot, but also problematic for at least 1 to 3 out of 10 people using it. If you really have to try cannabis, there is a time and place.
Guess what I threw out today? Guess what speaking of, if he's talking about weed, guess what I just threw out today? Just because I was so serious. Guess what I threw out today? Y'all gonna call me like stupid, dummy, bro. I threw out an ounce of weed today, untouched. I threw it out. Yes. And I threw out a PS5 controller that a certain person had got me, and I have nothing of that person. Yeah, hey, bro. Because I had to. Just because I had to, bro. I threw away a PS5 controller and an ounce of weed today. On God, if I go in my trash can right now, it is still in there. I promise you. That's how serious I am about this whole thing. That's how serious I am. You just broke. Yeah, bro. I had to. I threw, yeah. In the past days, what had I done? I gave away an essential hoodie. I threw away an ounce of weed. I threw away a PS5 controller. Hey, man. That's what I got to do to get better. That's what I got to do.
And that's in your 20s. If you're younger, the science is clear. Don't do it. At least, not yet. You'll have plenty of time to
because the thing about it, before my whole situation thing was happening, I thought that was gonna make me feel like better. That's why I copped it at first. But then like a couple of days went by, I wasn't using it. I didn't touch it. It was still in my bag because I didn't touch it. But then I told myself, I said, this ain't gonna make me feel better. Actually, it's not gonna make me feel better at all. So I had to, I got the trash bag. I threw away what I needed to throw away. It's the best thing for me, actually, if I'm being honest.
Experiment later. Let's do a different experiment now.
Yeah, get out of here, pal. Yeah, man, you